My Lords, by this late hour we've heard many articulate, passionate and, dare I say, tetchy speeches. Accusations have abound. The bill is, we're told, constitutional vandalism, no less, a law that will give succour to Putin. And surprisingly, the anti-Brexit coalition seem to have become fans of revoking Article 16, all as a stick to beat the bill with. While we have listened to a plethora of lectures about tarnishing the UK's international reputation, many of us who support the aims of this bill emphasise the importance of UK politicians not further tarnishing their reputation at home amongst its national electorate. I make no apology for focusing on democracy and lawmaking within UK borders. My priority is national and popular sovereignty. As Lord Dodds of Duncairns reminded us, it's jarring when those ideals are cheered when they're bravely fought for in Ukraine, but sneered at when they inspire voters or law changes at home. A quick back to basics, lest we forget. In 2016, the UK as a whole, and that includes Northern Ireland, voted to leave the EU. Millions voted to take control of our laws, take control of our borders, take control of political decision-making. And lest we forget, many Brexiteers knew then that the protocol was a desperate, flawed fudge. Why? To get Brexit over the line. And why did we need to get Brexit over the line more recently? Because for years, sections of the establishment tried to thwart and overturn the democratic decision of its own citizens, in flagrant disregard of the rule of law and any sense of democracy. Now that imperfect protocol, which has been inflexibly interpreted by one side, insists that the jurisdiction of the Court of Justice of the EU will hold sway over some UK citizens and compromises the integrity of the borders of the UK's internal market. Where there's been a nod to democracy in this debate is when we hear from, for example, Lord Cormack, that the majority of Northern Irish parties object to the bill. Similarly, we're reminded that, to quote one critic of the bill in the other place, that, quote, the majority of Northern Ireland have not consented to Brexit in any form and a majority of voters and MLAs reject the bill in the strongest terms. But surely a UK-wide referendum means just that, not a balkanised divisive approach to geographic political differences. The majority of London voted to remain, same in Scotland. Would it be okay if Greater London and Scotland declared UDI, saying they preferred to stay in the EU's single market and take instruction from the ECJ? Indeed, isn't this just the approach Nicola Sturgeon is adopting now in her demands for yet another independence referendum? But can I note a certain double standard in respecting the wishes of voters in devolved areas? My fellow Welsh citizens voted overwhelmingly to leave the EU. That didn't stop Labour's Mark Drakeford and the Senedd continually declaring the electorate had made a grave error and trying to undermine that majority decision. Of course, we can all note that the Union is under strain at present. Since 2016, lots of British politicians seem to have noticed that the border between the 6 counties and the 26 counties is rather, well, let me say, troublesome. Well spotted, if belatedly. Yes, some in Northern Ireland are now arguing that that border is artificial and are calling for a border poll. It's absolutely legitimate to campaign for that border poll and indeed to campaign for a united Ireland. But that is a completely separate question to this one. The borders in which the majority voted to reclaim democratic sovereignty from the EU were the borders of the United Kingdom as is. And that is why, whatever our substantial differences on many matters, I give solidarity to the DUP and the Unionist community. They might be surprised to hear. A blame game has taken place in this chamber that suggests that it's the DUP who are the anti-democrats here, expressed bluntly by Lord Treesman, Clark and Viscount Hailsham. But that felt, to me, cheap, misplaced and ironic. Yes, ironic, because actually all the DUP speakers were the ones who talked about civil liberties and equal treatment under the law, which are thrown out by the protocol. I'm also rather worried when a government minister, Chris Heaton-Harris, chides the DUP saying, quote, "Whatever the issues of the protocol, there are very important functions and services that people in Northern Ireland need to work," as though the DUP hadn't noticed. But when he says, "whatever the issues of the protocol," excuse me, if the government don't understand that these issues are not second order, if they don't understand that those issues are crucial, it doesn't give me much faith that this government will see the bill through. I hope I'm wrong. Why attack the DUP? I appreciate that politicians who won't be bullied into U-turning and abandoning their mandate might be a rarity in this unelected chamber. But I think it's admirable. And while I listened carefully to the wise words of the brilliant speech by Lord Bew, if Lords here are really motivated by a desire to restore power-sharing executive, then it's simple. Vote for the bill. I certainly will, and I will be doing so on behalf of British voters as well.
My Lords, I was not sure whether to speak in this debate on a bill which I simply don't like. But after all the efforts to conclude the internationally acclaimed Good Friday Agreement and then the withdrawal agreement and protocol with the